Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I have just done a graded presentation with my SCITT program, so I'm kind of used to talking now, so I just thought why not sit down, record and get another video out for you guys. Okay, so I asked for some questions and I'm just going to do this as a teaching related Q&A almost. So the first question is what to do if you can't answer a question a child asks you. I'm so scared of going blank. To be fair, that is a really good question. I would be completely petrified of that in secondary school. For me personally in primary, there's a lot of ways that you can overcome that. There's different responses you can have. The first thing you could do is, oh, actually, I don't know, Bob, that's actually a really, really good question. Do you know what? I'm not sure. How could we find the answer? And so straight away you're kind of putting the accountability on them, and for the class to answer they might say, oh, you could Google it, Miss Paris, you could look in the dictionary, depending on the question, all these kind of things. So you can make it proactive. You can teach them that when you don't know something it's okay not to know, but that, you know, it's our responsibility to find out. Another thing you could answer is, wow, Bob, that's such a good question. Can anybody else help Bob? And, you know, so then straight away you put it back on the children. See if anyone else knows, especially if it's the topic that, I don't know, for example, say MFL and you actually have an MFL speaker in the class. That's okay as well. Another thing you could do is just take it as a spontaneous learning opportunity. The joys of children is that they are kind of unpredictable sometimes, and they can come up with brilliant points that nobody saw coming. And so don't be afraid to just say, oh, well, I don't know, let's just have a Google right now. And then, you know, suddenly everyone is kind of back to attention because they're like, oh, actually the teacher doesn't know something. Do it as a teacher versus pupil challenge. You could say, okay, after this work, let's go and find out the answer to this, and let's see who can find it out the quickest. When it comes to specific skills, for example spelling, and a teacher might write something wrong and there's a child that points it out in front of the whole class, you could say, oh, I was just testing, oh, I was going to come back to that when I was going to edit, but actually thank you for pointing it out to me. I'll edit it straight away in my green pen, or whatever your marking policy is at the school. Okay, next question. Did you ever feel overwhelmed throughout your training? Yes. Absolutely yes. There were times when I was very close to crying in the middle of the classroom, just because when you put so much effort into a lesson and it doesn't go your way, no matter how hard you try, it's quite disheartening. Or sometimes when you try and make something fun deliberately and the children are just not taking to it. And that's why I have learned so much about behaviour management in this past year, because I had so many experiences like that which made me go, okay, this wasn't acceptable, this wasn't good, what can I do to change that, what can I implement, which children do I need to specifically you know, form that relationship with. And sometimes you just have to get them on your side because they might not be aware of what they're doing or how they're disrupting. And so if you just let them know and put it to the front of their mind rather than the teacher being like a back thought, then it can actually be really helpful, especially when some children try and be the alpha male or get attention from other people. Actually you're giving them that attention that they crave, and so they may not feel like they need to play out, and suddenly your lesson goes a lot smoother, there are less disruptions, you can get the stuff done, you can enjoy it while it being a controlled and safe environment essentially. But yes, I did get overwhelmed. Sometimes, especially when the subject's not your forte, it's very easy to plan for ages and ages and still not get it right. There were some evenings, especially when I first started teaching maths, that was something I was really afraid of. I would go home, having stayed till the latest point at school, gone home and carried on to plan until maybe 9 PM, and then I dreamt about it because I was so stressed about it, woke up at 5 AM really stressed, you know, and I would literally rehearse this lesson over and over and over again, because, you know, in the first few months it can be daunting, and especially in that first or second week, depending on when you start teaching, that you do your first lesson, it can be worrying, and you know, you have work to do from your SCITT, you have marking to do or lesson planning to do, you have mentor meetings to do, staff meetings to go to, and when it's not familiar to you, yeah, it can be overwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. It's just about time management, behaviour management, practice, and be forgiving to yourself, try and move on, reflect. You know, it's good to reflect, but then afterwards don't have it on your shoulders, because yeah, forgive yourself. The next question is, did you find you had a lot of support throughout? Yeah, there is quite a lot of support, especially in this main placement that I was in. It was very tight-knit. It was only one form entry. I think by my first day I had already spoke to every single member of staff there. Even the headmistress would eat lunch with us in the staff room, which I think is always really nice. So in my main placement there was a lot of support. In my second placement, not so much. It was a 3-form entry. There was good communication between the 3-form, you know, each class in the year, but yeah, I don't know. My second placement wasn't as supportive, but I still really enjoyed it and I still learnt a lot. The TAs, like normal people, you can get on with them, sometimes you don't get on with them as much, but they are there to support you, and I think sometimes they can find it tricky when you come in as a trainee and you start bossing them around, but they are there to help you. And I have tried doing it before without my help and kind of just saying, could you work, you know, with these children, and you know, giving her flexibility, but actually she would keep coming to me and saying, what would you like me to do, what should I do next? So actually it was better to just be honest with her and say what I wanted to be done and how she could help me, because it's difficult to do it by yourself, but then if you have a TA that's not supporting you, it's almost like an extra thing to your to-do list, because they're not sure what to do either. In terms of my SCITT, they are very supportive. I didn't really ask them any questions, I didn't talk to them much, but their emails were always open, and I know that a lot of other SCITT people have had regular contact with them regarding like mental health or workloads or problem with mentors, so they are very open to that. Obviously if you have issues in your main placement, you can't go to your main placement about that, you have to go through the SCITT, and so yes, there is a lot of support available. It's just whether you go and seek it and whether you approach it. It's not very often that they will email you and say, oh, how's it going, do you have any questions, because yeah, you're an adult, you can ask for support. Okay, so my last question is, my book list is huge because I found these on various teaching pages, and my degree isn't teaching related. What's your #1 tip to prepare? Okay, my #1 tip, if you don't do anything else, is download a copy of the teaching standards. I'll leave a link to the PDF overview below. Familiarise yourself with that, because you will be referring to it in basically everything. And read the national curriculum. Even if you limit yourself to the 2 years that you'll be doing in your 2 different placements, just familiarise yourself. You know, even though I've spent a whole year in year 4, sometimes I think, well, actually I'm qualifying as a teacher, I could be working in any single year group, and I don't really know what's expected in year 3 or year 2. Especially if you're in year 2 or year 6 and they're the end of key stages, you really need to be familiar with where they are coming from and where they have to go. Even in year 6 where they go to year 7, you should be able to prepare them for that. Year 2 going to year 3, you need to prepare them for the sudden leap and SATs. If anything, before you do anything, before you buy books, before you buy anything, download the teaching standards, read it, and familiarise yourself with your key stage in the national curriculum. Before I forget also, this wasn't written down so I almost forgot. Somebody asked me to show the interview prep that I did. So I'm showing you. On this card, on the blue card, I did mind maps on the schools. So this is basically looking at their pupil premium policy, behaviour policy, values and ethos, SEND policy, and I've also got a little brainstorm of why do I want to work here. So for this school I put, I love the nurture and the support challenge, I love how inclusive they are, and I love that they mentioned behaviour communicates need, because this is just tutoring. So I did that. Basically, in doing that, it just allowed me to have the key points. When I was revising it, it allowed me to see, okay, I love in their behaviour policy that they model self-control and self-regulation. And I could see that because it had behaviour policy and a heart next to it. So I liked it. Really, really quick, because if they ask you, oh, what do you like about our behaviour policy, or what stood out to you about our behaviour policy, and you've just read like 25 pages and that was one policy and you kind of go mind blank. If you have it close to you, you could almost go like that, which is what I did. So I find that really helpful. Obviously, you don't have to go as detailed. If you've got a great memory, then brilliant. Just write down some key features if you want to. I also related to the school thing. I had a little section about why do you want to work in this school, or why do you think this school would suit you as a teacher. I also prepared several answers. I'm getting closer to the camera so you can see. So these are the answers that I prepared. What do you think are the characteristics of an effective teacher? What do you think promotes good learning within a class? Talk to us about safeguarding, including prevent. If you don't know, prevent is safeguarding and supporting those vulnerable to radicalisation. Number 4, what do you think effective feedback and review looks like? I did a little bit for teachers and a little bit for pupils. Number 5, as a class teacher, what does successful assessment look like? Number 6, how would you go about ensuring that all your lessons were engaging and motivating? Number 7, why do you want to work at the school? Okay, I've mentioned that. Number 8, how do you know your children's next steps? And number 9, how do you approach dealing with a class who refuse to respect? Just in these alone, we have covered every single teaching standard. And I think somewhere on a separate paper I had something about teaching assistants as well, deploying them. Put answers in there that you could use to a variety of questions. So for example, the what do you think promotes good learning within a class? You could link answers on that question to, where was it? How would you go about ensuring that all your lessons were engaging and motivating? So what do you think promotes good learning within a class? You can talk about making your lessons engaging. You can talk about creating an environment that promotes and aids learning. So phonics walls, English working walls, but also reading corners, a role play zone. All of these things do promote learning. You could say an environment that celebrates progress and good work. You know, have children's work mounted on the wall. And then obviously promotes good learning. You've got behaviour management. So every single behaviour management question that you prepared for, you can link those answers back to it as well. So it looks like loads, but if you look at all the questions separately, there's only like a few stems off, but I've kind of managed to link them all together in a way that if I forgot that question, I could just think of another question that links to it and talk about those answers. Another thing I did was just on a small post-it note, I put questions to ask. So in this particular interview, I said, I loved your young interpreter scheme and the links with schools in France and China. Is this something I could get involved with? Show you're proactive, you're ready to contribute to the school. Number 2, I saw that you have a choir, but I couldn't find information about music lessons. Is this taught by the class teacher or does somebody externally come in? And number 3, which is a very commonly asked question, what sort of NQT provision support is there available? I hope that that will be of use to you for anyone who's got interviews coming up at the moment or next year. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and if you would like to stay up to date with when I post, click the bell below as well. Bye!